Echoes of the Silent Dawn, Chapter 1. Chapter 1. Whispers of Morning Light. The first light of dawn stretched across the silent verge, transforming the lake into a canvas of pale blue hues. Dew glistened on the wooden dock, which jutted into the water like a crooked finger. Caius Lorne stood at its edge, eyes locked on the ripples that danced across the surface, each one a fleeting reminder of choices made and paths taken. Tall grasses swayed gently in the wind, their rustling a soft murmur that seemed to carry whispers from a distant past. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and pine, both sharp and invigorating, mingling with memories buried deep. The landscape opened before him, every sound amplified in the solitude. A heron stood motionless at the water's edge, its neck curved in a watchful pose, a stark contrast to the chaos that lurked just beyond the horizon. Caius stepped onto the dock, the wood creaking beneath him, grounding him in the moment. He inhaled sharply, the cold air filling his lungs, a tightening in his chest. As the sun peeked over the horizon, long shadows stretched across the water, reaching out like silent beacons. He watched the ripples expand, each one echoing the choices that had led him to this moment. The heron remained still, a sentinel against the trembling surface, a reminder that stillness could easily shatter. A sudden gust of wind whisked through, tugging at the grasses and sending a chill through his bones. The scent of smoke from the cabin's chimney drifted on the breeze, thickening the air with unspoken tensions. Caius turned towards the cabin, its weathered wood etched with the stories of years gone by. As he approached, the door creaked open, revealing a dim interior. Herbs hung in the corner, a table scarred from years of wear. The space felt small yet heavy with the weight of memories and unspoken fears. He paused at the threshold, glancing back at the lake. The ripples surged, disturbed by unseen forces below. The heron lifted into the air, a dark silhouette against the brightening sky. Caius's heart raced as he recognized the urgency of his situation. Shadows stretched long across the water, and in the distance the low rumble of thunder hinted at the storm brewing. He clenched his fists, feeling the pressure of time closing in on him. He had little time left to prepare, and every second mattered. Caius turned back from the window, eyes narrowing at the lake's surface, which shimmered violently. The heron had vanished, swallowed by the dawn's glare. Beneath the calm he sensed a brewing storm. In that moment he understood the stakes. Danger lurked beneath the surface, and he had to act before darkness engulfed everything. He grabbed his pack, urgency clear in his movements. No more waiting. The shadows on the water seemed to beckon him forward, demanding action before the dark seeped in and consumed all. Stepping outside, the wind whipped around him, carrying the sharp scent of impending conflict. The silent verge was still his, but only for now. Beyond the trees, the future awaited, unforgiving and unavoidable. Caius stepped onto the dock, the wood creaking beneath him, grounding him in the moment. He inhaled sharply, the cold air filling his lungs, a tightening in his chest. As the sun peeked over the horizon, long shadows stretched across the water, reaching out like silent beacons. He watched the ripples expand, each one echoing the choices that had led him to this moment. The heron remained still, a sentinel against the trembling surface, a reminder that stillness could easily shatter. A sudden gust of wind whisked through, tugging at the grasses and sending a chill through his bones. The scent of smoke from the cabin's chimney drifted on the breeze, thickening the air with unspoken tensions. Caius turned towards the cabin, its weathered wood etched with the stories of years gone by. As he approached, the door creaked open, revealing a dim interior. Herbs hung in the corner, a table scarred from years of wear. The space felt small yet heavy with the weight of memories and unspoken fears. He paused at the threshold, glancing back at the lake. The ripples surged, disturbed by unseen forces below. The heron lifted into the air, a dark silhouette against the brightening sky. Caius's heart raced as he recognized the urgency of his situation. Shadows stretched long across the water, and in the distance the low rumble of thunder hinted at the storm brewing. He clenched his fists, feeling the pressure of time closing in on him. He had little time left to prepare, and every second mattered. Caius turned back from the window, eyes narrowing at the lake's surface, which shimmered violently. The heron had vanished, swallowed by the dawn's glare. Beneath the calm, he sensed a brewing storm. In that moment he understood the stakes. Danger lurked beneath the surface, and he had to act before darkness engulfed everything. He grabbed his pack, urgency clear in his movements. No more waiting. The shadows on the water seemed to beckon him forward, demanding action before the dark seeped in and consumed all. Stepping outside, the wind whipped around him, carrying the sharp scent of impending conflict. The silent verge was still his, but only for now.
Beyond the trees, the future awaited, unforgiving and unavoidable.
The dock groaned beneath Peregrine's boots as she set down the basket, its rough wood biting into her palms. Morning light sifted through the branches, tracing restless shadows across the water's surface. The scent of dew-soaked grass tangled with smoke from last night's fire, anchoring her in solitude she could no longer escape. Fish gleamed wet and silver in the basket, scales catching the dawn around her. The silent verge held its breath, quiet but not still. A distant waterfowl called sharply, its cry slicing through the hush, a stark reminder that life pulsed beyond her fragile refuge. Peregrine's jaw tightened. The lake's calm surface masked currents she couldn't see, much like the doubts stirring beneath her skin. Her fingers traced the dock's splintered edge, rough and unyielding. She closed her eyes, catching the rustle of grass and the faint hum of insects, a wilderness alive and indifferent. A cold twist settled low in her belly, a visceral knot, as if unseen eyes watched from the dark water. She inhaled sharply, the sharp scent of the lake rising with the wind, carrying whispered warnings. "You think sacrifice means something?" a voice murmured behind her. She spun to find Dorian leaning against a nearby post, his smile easy but his gaze calculating. "You don't have to pretend," Dorian said, stepping closer, eyes glinting with unspoken promises. "Sacrifice can be a tool, Peregrine. Not just pain, but power." She stiffened, the basket suddenly heavier. "Power?" she echoed, voice low, wary, "or control cloaked in noble lies?" His lips twitched. "Isn't that what heroes have always done, used sacrifice to shape the world?" Peregrine's grip tightened on the basket's handle, knuckles whitening. "I used to believe that," she admitted, voice cracking. "Now I wonder if it's just a game, one we lose before it even begins." The morning breeze stirred, tugging loose strands of her dark hair. "What if all this," she gestured toward the lake, the dock, the silent expanse, "is just waiting for us to make the wrong move?" Dorian stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Then maybe it's time to stop waiting and start moving. Sacrifice isn't futility. It's the cost of change." His gaze locked with hers, steady and unyielding. "You can be part of that change, or keep standing still, watching everything slip away." The tension between them thickened, the quiet of the silent verge no longer comfort, but a charged battlefield. Peregrine let the silence stretch, then cast her gaze back to the water where ripples fractured the morning's reflection. The fish in her basket flapped weakly, a sharp reminder that every choice came with a price. She squared her shoulders, the cold air biting at her skin, and met Dorian's look without flinching. "Maybe change demands more than I thought," she said, voice steady but uncertain. The lake's surface settled again, but beneath, currents churned, just like the storm gathering between them. As the first crack of thunder rolled across the sky, Peregrine knew the moment to decide was closing fast. She tightened her grip on her resolve and stepped away from the dock, ready to face what came next. Peregrine crouched by the lake's edge, fingers skimming the cool water, watching ripples spread outward. The scent of smoked fish drifted from the nearby fire pit. Elders sat nearby, their hushed voices blending with the gentle lap of water against stones. Long wooden tables stretched with rough bread still warm from the oven, dark greens glistening with dew, and bowls of millet porridge steaming in the midday sun. The villagers' chatter rose and fell, echoing the tranquility of the shimmering surface, yet beneath it all an unseen threat pressed closer, sending a chill through her. Peregrine's stomach growled, but she pushed the hunger aside, focusing on the gathering, the weight of the moment heavy in the air. As Peregrine straightened, she caught the keeper of the law's nod, a subtle signal of acknowledgement. She returned the gesture, pressing her palms together, feeling the rough texture of the bread in her hands. The aroma of herbal tea mingled with the scent of roasted tubers. She tore a piece of bread, dipping it into the porridge, savoring the creamy texture as it soaked in. Nearby, children played, their laughter fading abruptly as the atmosphere shifted. Peregrine swallowed hard, forcing the food down, trying to mask the tremor in her hands. The moment stretched, thick with anticipation, as she silently debated whether to stay or to go, to protect or to observe. A sudden rustle in the underbrush shattered the calm. Peregrine's pulse quickened. The elder's voice trembled while reciting ancient words, cracking mid-verse. Nervous glances swept among the villagers. The farmer, dirt-streaked hands clenched into fists, whispered about white feathers found by the lake, divine signs or omens. Peregrine's mind spun with superstition, her instincts urging her to act. She fidgeted with her cloak strap, feeling the weight of unspoken fears creating a knot in her stomach.
Suddenly, Peregrine rose, brushing crumbs from her hands, heads turned, surprised and wary. "It's time I take a look around, just to make sure we're safe," she announced, voice steady despite her pounding heart. The elders murmured disapproval, but she pressed on. Outside, the air was charged, the leaves whispering secrets. She gripped the rough bark of an ancient tree, drawing strength from its solidity. Today, she would face the darkness beyond the trees. No longer a passive witness, but a defender of her people. She was ready to confront whatever lay beyond, determined to protect her sanctuary. Peregrine stepped beyond the tree line, her heart racing as the shadows twisted and danced around her. The forest felt alive, each rustle and whisper a reminder that danger lurked just out of sight. With each step, she fought against the tightening in her chest, a surge of adrenaline propelling her forward. She was not just a figure in the village, she was its protector, and the weight of that responsibility ignited a fire within her. Ahead, the trees parted to reveal a darker path, one that called to her with a chilling promise. With resolve, she pressed on, ready to face the unknown that awaited in the shadows.
The gloaming reach unfolded like a secret, its misty shoreline cloaked in a haunting stillness. Damp air vibrated with an electric chill, mingling the rich scents of wet earth and blooming wildflowers. Caius Lorne stepped closer to the water, feeling his boots sink into the muddy bank. Smooth stones lined the shore, slick with moss glistening under the midday sun. A distant predator's call shattered the tranquility, sharp and urgent, sending a jolt through him. He strained to listen, the heavy silence enveloped him. Each breath mingled with the rhythmic lapping of water against the stones, and Caius pondered what lay just beneath the surface, hidden from view. Caius crouched, fingertips brushing the slick stone, the cool dampness seeping through his gloves. The texture reminded him of buried secrets, old wounds. He focused on the world around him, the rustling of leaves, the distant echoes of life hidden in the underbrush. Each sound wove a tapestry of anticipation, thickening the air with the promise of revelation. The predator's call echoed again, closer now, an ominous signal of danger lurking nearby. His pulse quickened, urging him to act, before the shadows deepened further. His brow furrowed as the shadows deepened around him, flickering at the edges of his vision. He hesitated, glancing back toward the path, torn between curiosity and fear. The gloaming reach felt like a sanctuary, yet its beauty harbored hidden dangers. The wind rustled through the willows, their branches reaching toward him as if to warn him away. He stood, heart hammering, eager yet wary of what lay ahead. The tranquil lake, a deceptive mirror of the sky, concealed chaos beneath its surface. A sudden rustle in the underbrush caught his attention, a sharp snap of a twig echoing like a gunshot. Caius turned sharply, muscles coiling in anticipation. Was it friend or foe? He pressed his palm against his chest, feeling the rapid rhythm beneath his fingers. The air thickened, heavy with unspoken truths. The predator's cry rang out once more, closer still, as if challenging him to uncover the truth hidden in the depths, or remain forever in the shadows of uncertainty. He took a step back, the mud squelching beneath his weight, grounding him in the moment. The gloaming reach felt alive, the earth trembling with hidden energies. The haunting cry echoed again, a reminder that the predator was closer than he dared to imagine. Caius glanced at the water, its surface now rippling with secrets. The world around him thrummed with life, yet his senses sharpened, alert to the danger that loomed. "We need to move, Peregrine," he murmured, scanning the shoreline for any sign of his companion. "Time isn't on our side." Closing Parkrips, Caius took a deep breath, steeling himself for what lay ahead. The gloaming reach was both a promise and a peril, a delicate balance of beauty and danger. With another glance at the shadows, he stepped forward, ready to confront whatever awaited him beneath the surface. His determination surged, a silent vow that he would not retreat. As he moved, the echoes of the predator faded, replaced by the urgency of their mission. This was no longer just a quest for knowledge, it was a race against time. Caius took a deep breath, steeling himself for what lay ahead. The gloaming reach was both a promise and a peril, a delicate balance of beauty and danger. With another glance at the shadows, he stepped forward, ready to confront whatever awaited him beneath the surface. His determination surged, a silent vow that he would not retreat. As he moved, the echoes of the predator faded, replaced by the urgency of their mission. This was no longer just a quest for knowledge, it was a race against time. Caius took a deep breath, steeling himself for what lay ahead. The gloaming reach was both a promise and a peril, a delicate balance of beauty and danger. With another glance at the shadows, he stepped forward, ready to confront whatever awaited him beneath the surface.
His determination surged, a silent vow that he would not retreat. As he moved, the echoes of the predator faded, replaced by the urgency of their mission. This was no longer just a quest for knowledge, it was a race against time.
Peregrine stepped into the Siren's haven, a weathered wooden pavilion perched at the edge of the lake. The air brimmed with the scent of damp earth and salt, mingling with faded traces of ancient parchment. Ropes, frayed and rough, danced in the cool wind, their gritty surfaces grounding her. Golden twilight flickered across the rippling water, casting strange shapes that shifted like shadows beneath its surface. The lake shimmered, but she sensed something lurking just out of sight. Her chest tightened. She couldn't shake the feeling that this place was both familiar and menacing, a reminder of choices yet to be made. Peregrine hesitated, her muscles taut as she grappled with the familiar pull of the place and the lurking threat beyond her sight. A wave of nausea washed over her as memories of the last time she stood here flooded her mind. Inhaling deeply, she sought to ground herself in the moment. The still water, unnervingly quiet, seemed to whisper secrets. She gripped the ropes tighter, her knuckles whitening as she stepped forward cautiously. Each movement calculated, as if the ground might betray her. The distant rustle of trees sent a shiver down her spine, the air thick with unspoken tension. As she scanned the shadows, her heart raced. "Show yourself," she shouted, her voice trembling with both fear and resolve. An echo of animalistic growls rumbled from the woods, underscoring her anxiety. She felt the hairs on her neck prickle, urging her to retreat. But she pressed on. "What's lurking out there?" she whispered, her voice barely audible over the wind. The growl returned, louder now, vibrating in her chest. Peregrine clenched her fists, determination coursing through her. "I refuse to be just another whisper in the gloaming. I will uncover the truth, no matter the cost." Shadows danced around her, teasing her vision, but she held her ground. The predator's growl echoed again, primal and threatening, and she squared her shoulders, jaw set. "Come and get me," she challenged, voice low and steady. The lake shimmered and shifted, promising peril and revelation. The water rippled, the surface quaking. The unknown beckoned her closer, and she felt her breath quicken as she took another step toward the edge. She was ready to confront whatever lay beneath, even if it meant facing the darkest depths of her own resolve. With a final, steadying breath, she stepped into the gloom, her figure silhouetted against the fading light. The gloaming reach stretched before her, full of both danger and discovery, and she was determined to unearth its truths. Closing Parkrup, as she ventured further into the shadows, the chilling growl of the unseen predator echoed in her mind. Each step felt like a challenge against the darkness that loomed, daring her to turn back. But she couldn't, not now. Something within her had shifted, an awakening of sorts. The weight of her choices settled on her shoulders, yet her fierce determination blazed bright. This was no longer just a quest for truth, it was a confrontation with her own limits. "I will not be silenced," she declared into the gathering, dark, her voice strong, cutting through the oppressive silence. The lake, still and watchful, promised secrets, and she was ready to uncover them. As she ventured further into the shadows, the chilling growl of the unseen predator echoed in her mind. Each step felt like a challenge against the darkness that loomed, daring her to turn back. But she couldn't. Not now. Something within her had shifted, an awakening of sorts. The weight of her choices settled on her shoulders, yet her fierce determination blazed bright. This was no longer just a quest for truth, it was a confrontation with her own limits. "I will not be silenced," she declared into the gathering dark, her voice strong, cutting through the oppressive silence. The lake, still and watchful, promised secrets, and she was ready to uncover them. The Siren's haven stood at the edge of the lake, a weathered pavilion embraced by the twilight. Its wooden beams, worn and grey, creaked under the weight of the evening breeze. The air was thick with the mingling scents of damp earth and salt, a sensory reminder of the lake's ancient presence. Flickers of amber light danced across the water's surface, illuminating the ripples like fleeting flames. A waterbird called in the distance, its cry sharp against the soft murmur of waves lapping against the pilings. As shadows lengthened, Caius Lorne stood rigid at the edge, fists clenched, the world around him fading as he focused on the turbulent decision ahead. Dorian's influence loomed large, and the pressure of what lay beneath the calm surface pressed against his chest. Caius traced the grain of the weathered wood beneath his fingertips, feeling the stories etched into its surface. Each creak of the pavilion echoed his internal turmoil, a reminder of the storms weathered and yet to come. Mara stood beside him, her fingers brushing against the tangled ropes over the railing, her voice cutting through the tension. "Every creak, every ripple, that lake breathes with us," she said.
her tone low but urgent. He nodded as the planks trembled beneath him, the wind tugging at his coat, sending a chill down his spine. The torn canvas above snapped unexpectedly, pulling his gaze upward just as a solitary bird called out again, its sound a lonely note against the growing darkness. The waves grew louder, slapping rhythmically against the pilings, intensifying the atmosphere of urgency. Caius leaned closer to the edge, the gritty surface beneath his toes grounding him. The last light flickered over the water, igniting it with a temporary brilliance before darkness swallowed it whole. Mara's gaze met his, her eyes reflecting the lake's shifting shimmer. "The predator's range is shifting? That ripple," she pointed toward a subtle disturbance on the water, "that's a warning. We don't have much time." Her grip on the railing trembled slightly, and Caius felt the sensation pulse through him like a heartbeat. Each breath tasted of salt, tightening his chest, a reminder that their moment was slipping away. "We can't just stand here. We need a strategy, something that puts us ahead of whatever's lurking out there," Mara insisted, her voice steady and assertive, cutting through the noise of the waves. Caius stepped back, the darkening water pulling at his thoughts. The lake shimmered with fleeting gold before surrendering to shadow, mirroring the weight pressing down on him. He gripped the coarse rope, grounding himself amid the rising storm of decisions. Shadows deepened, the wind howling, tugging at the frayed fabric above. Time felt like a noose tightening around them, every sound sharpening the edge of what might come next. Caius inhaled deeply, letting the salty air fill his lungs as he prepared to act. "This is it. No second-guessing now. It's time to act, and I can feel the lake holding its breath, waiting for us to make our move," he declared, the urgency clear in his voice. Mara nodded, her hand still resting on the railing, a silent agreement forged in the tension of the moment. Shadows encroached further as night fell fully, the water's surface rippling once more, hinting at the unseen predator lurking below. With resolve igniting within him, Caius took a step forward. The moment for hesitation had passed. Action was now the only option, as the dark water seemed to echo back their unspoken fears.
Caius Lorne crouched by the lake's edge, the morning mist curling around his ankles and weaving through the tall grasses. The water shimmered in the dawn light, its surface deceptively calm, concealing the darkness lurking beneath. Nearby, a small fire crackled, smoke drifting skyward, mingling with the scent of roasted fish. Villagers moved slowly, their muted voices blending with the gentle lapping of water against the bank. Alaric, the keeper of law, raised a hand, signaling the start of the day's rituals. Caius observed their bowed heads, hands pressed together in silent prayer, while the rising sun cast long shadows over the gathering. A distant bird's cry pierced the tranquil morning, reminding him that time pressed on and danger loomed closer than ever. Mara leaned toward Caius, her voice low. "Do you think the water dreams mean anything?" Her eyes searched the depths of the lake, longing for answers. Caius hesitated, then replied, "I can't shake the feeling that the vision last night was a direct warning from the depths." She shivered as she clasped her hands around her knees, her brow furrowing. Maybe it's a sign or a warning. The village's quiet hum persisted, but Caius saw the elders exchange wary glances, their faces etched with worry. A pair of artisans paused, their chatter subdued, glancing at Alaric, who began a blessing. Yet the unease rippling through the villagers was palpable. Eyes darted toward the darkening woods. Caius straightened, his gaze locked on the water. "The dreams, they're growing more frequent. The predator is near. We can't ignore it anymore." His words sliced through the air, demanding attention. Alaric turned slowly, studying him with a cautious gaze. "Speak carefully, Caius. Rumors can stir panic. We must remain united." Urgency coiled around Caius, tightening with every fleeting moment. "We have to gather the villagers. Waiting could mean disaster. The water's darkening. Can't you see it? The signs are all around us." Alaric's eyes narrowed. "We'll consider your words, but recklessness could cost us everything." Caius watched the villagers scatter, their routines resuming, but their movements more hurried, more guarded. He lingered at the water's edge, eyes flicking back to the lake's surface. The sun climbed higher, casting a golden glow that felt eerily calm. He grasped the feather that had drifted down earlier, its white tip pristine against the dirt. With careful hands, he placed it at the threshold of his cabin, a silent plea for guidance. The shadows loomed around him, and he sensed the moment of reckoning was near. No more waiting, no more hiding. The predator was closer than ever, and he had to act before it was too late. In the gathering dusk, Caius watched the village settle into quiet routines.
The hum of daily life persisted, tools striking wood, children's laughter echoing over the water. Yet beneath it all, a current of tension rippled. He spotted healers tending to an injured villager, their hands steady and sure. One looked his way, a faint nod of understanding passing between them. The lake's surface remained unruffled, but beneath it a tumult brewed. An urgency grew in his chest, a need to speak again, to warn. He approached Alaric once more, voice firm. "The danger's closer. We need to act now." The keeper's gaze met his eyes, shadowed with doubt. "We'll decide soon. Be patient." Caius clenched his jaw. The cost of patience could be their survival. As darkness settled, the silent verge seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the dawn, and whatever it might bring. He stepped back to his cabin, the feather still resting at the threshold, a symbol of unspoken fears. The villagers would gather again tonight, their silence heavy with the weight of uncertainty. Caius took a deep breath as he looked once more at the still lake, its surface reflecting the dying light. The calm exterior betrayed nothing of the turmoil beneath, but he could feel it, every tremor, every whisper of movement just below the surface. Shadows deepened around him, and the predator's presence pressed against their defenses. Caius clenched his fists, knowing their unity was the only shield they had left.
Dorian's boots sank into the churned earth of the silent verge, dust swirling as he moved. The lake behind him lay still, its surface reflecting the unyielding sky. Around him, skeletal trees whispered secrets of past sacrifices, their branches twisting against the wind. Ahead, the battlefield sprawled, scarred and silent, an echo of struggles long past. The air felt thick, a heaviness settling over him as he scanned the horizon. Shadows loomed, darkening with each heartbeat, hinting at the threat that lingered just beyond sight. Dorian clenched his fists, nails biting into his palms as he tasted salt and iron. This place demanded choices that could fracture the bonds he'd sworn to uphold. The stakes rose, and dread coiled in his belly, ready to strike as the storm approached. Nearby, villagers huddled in anxious clusters, their faces pale and eyes wide. Mara inhaled sharply, her hands trembling around the haft of her spear. "They're closer," she said, voice quaking. Dorian turned to her, his expression resolute. "We can't just sit and wait for them to come to us. We've got to strike at dusk, no holding back." The urgency in his tones sliced through the quiet, sharpening their focus and igniting their determination. They were ready to act, to embrace the chaos that would come. Shadows thickened at the tree line, a dark wall that seemed to pulse with life. Dorian's gaze snapped in their direction, adrenaline coursing through him. A low growl rumbled over the ridge, distant yet deliberate, each sound a reminder of the danger creeping closer. He squared his shoulders, refusing to let fear take hold. This was not merely about survival, it was a clash of ideals, tested in the crucible of battle. The creature's cry shattered the silence, a sharp note that reverberated through the air. Dorian's chest tightened, the predator now a relentless force threading through their lives. He loosened his grip on his spear, uncertainty humming beneath his skin. The air crackled with tension, each heartbeat echoing a silent question. How long before the hunter became the hunted? He glanced back at the villagers, their faces set with resolve. They stood ready to fight, united against the darkness. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the battlefield, the weight of expectation settled over Dorian, heavy and palpable. The villagers shifted, their resolve like steel, and he turned to them, his voice steady. "Tonight we face whatever's out there. Together we're stronger." The words hung in the air, a binding promise. In that moment they felt it, a surge of determination among them, igniting the spark that would drive them forward. They would not retreat. They would carve a path through the chaos, ready to confront the storm and emerge on the other side. The wind bit sharper now, slicing through the bones of the silent verge, as if eager to exhume every secret buried beneath the scorched earth. Caius Lorne crouched among the brittle stalks, eyes narrowing against the glare that hammered the horizon. His fingers had relaxed, yes, but the ache beneath his skin thickened, a slow burn threading its way through muscle and marrow. The spear lay idle beside him, its tip sunk deep into the dirt, yet his hands hovered near, restless and twitching like the wings of a trapped bird. A distant rustle teased the edge of his hearing, the predator's range creeping closer, advancing like a shadow that refused to dissolve at dusk. He didn't dare to breathe too loud. The fragile quiet wrapped around him, a shroud laden with promises unkept and dangers unspoken. Each gust whispered names, forgotten warriors, lost futures,
and the weight of solitude pressed at his ribs. A silent verdict. Time was bleeding out faster than he could grasp. The grass bowed under the wind's command. He felt the moment shift and tighten, a coil waiting to snap. Caius rose, the dry snap of his joints echoing harshly. The verge stretched before him, a battered plain of cracked earth and bruised grass, where every step threatened to betray his presence. He scanned the horizon, lips pressed thin, eyes darting from one ragged hill to the next. The predator had shifted its path, no longer stalking the edges, but carving a deliberate route through the heart of this forsaken field. The urgency clawed at his gut, an unspoken command to move, to act, but his limbs resisted, weighted by the memory of losses too fresh to ignore. Somewhere beyond, a crow cawed, sharp and dissonant, slicing through the silence like a warning. Caius clenched his jaw, muscles tightening, the cold sweat tracing rivulets down his spine. He forced himself forward, feet crunching over brittle stalks, spear gripped like a lifeline. The waiting was over. The silent verge was no sanctuary anymore. It was a trap closing in, unseen and relentless. A flicker caught Caius's eye, a twitch in the tall grass, a shadow folding into shadow. His breath stalled, muscles locked in a taut line from finger to toe. The predator was here, not as myth or distant threat, but as a living, breathing reckoning. Time frayed at the edges, each second stretching and snapping like a frayed rope. He lowered his spear, eyes burning holes through the shifting haze. The wind stirred again, carrying the scent of iron and earth, the promise of a fight that could not be postponed. His body tightened, coiled for the strike, but deep beneath the surface, a tremor whispered. The hunt was no longer a game of survival. It was a question of who would vanish first into the silence.
Caius Lawn stood at the edge of the resource hub, the midday sun glaring down as the wind tugged at his coat. Salt spray stung his cheeks, mixing with the earthy scent wafting from the nearby docks. The lake stretched out before him, its surface shimmering with restless waves, each ripple reflecting the urgency building inside him. He shifted his weight, the old dock creaking underfoot as he scanned the water. A flicker beneath the surface, quick and sleek, twisted his stomach into a knot. Every nerve ignited, muscles coiling as tension prickled his skin. He gripped the rough wood of the railing, feeling the splintered edges bite into his palm. A heavy silence enveloped him, thick with anticipation. The moment demanded action, now or never. Caius squinted at the water, searching for movement. A flash beneath the surface sent a jolt through him. Trouble lurked close by, a predator waiting to strike. "Damn it," he whispered, urgency tightening his voice. His hand brushed against the rusty chain securing the outpost's door, cold and unyielding. He glanced back at the shoreline where the crumbling structure loomed, silent and accusatory. Straightening, he gripped the net he had snagged from the shore, its fibers rough against his fingers. The wind shifted, carrying the unexpected scent of lavender, a fleeting comfort amid the chaos. He inhaled deeply, trying to steady himself. The predator was still out there, and he had to act before it was too late. A low growl rumbled across the water, breaking the surface with a flash of sleek muscle and glinting eyes. Caius's pulse quickened. The creature emerged, massive and terrifying, a perfect nightmare of nature's power. Sweat rolled down his brow as he gripped the net tighter. The lake churned, the predators breathing heavy and primal. Caius stood firm, every instinct screaming to flee, but he held his ground. "Come on," he urged, voice steady, despite the adrenaline surging. The creature paused, observing, then lunged. Caius braced himself, muscles coiled, ready. This was the moment, no retreat, no surrender. He stepped forward, the splintered wood biting into his soles as the tension in his shoulders tightened. His knuckles turned white as he clutched the net. The predator lingered just beneath the surface, then surged upward, jaws snapping inches from his face. Caius held his breath, eyes locked on the menacing form. As the creature broke the water, he lunged, swinging the net. The fibers caught the creature's snout, momentarily halting its attack. A raw, fierce shout escaped him. The fight was real now. No more hesitation, just survival. The water roiled and splashed as shadows darted beneath the surface. Caius moved to the end of the dock, positioning himself between the beast and the sanctuary behind him. His lungs burned, every muscle stretched tight. The creature's eyes glowed, fierce and intelligent. He tightened his grip on the net, ready to strike again. An electric stillness filled the air, as if the world awaited the inevitable clash. The lake darkened, shadows stretching as if the sky mourned the coming fight. Salt stung his lips, and the pounding in his ears matched his racing thoughts. This was his stand, his moment of truth.
The beast erupted from the water, massive and snarling, eyes blazing with primal fury. Caius's breath caught as adrenaline coursed through him. The creature's body shimmered in the sunlight, muscles rippling beneath slick skin. His hands trembled slightly, but he held firm, the net clenched tightly in his fists. The roar of the beast echoed across the water, a warning and a challenge. Caius's throat dried. He stared into those savage eyes, knowing the stakes. This was the culmination of all he had fought for. With a surge of resolve, he pressed forward, ready to meet whatever came next, body and mind aligned for the fight. The creature paused at the water's edge, sizing Caius up. Then, with a shuddering splash, it dove back beneath the surface. Caius stood frozen, chest heaving, sweat cooling on his skin. The lake fell silent, the threat temporarily gone, but the tension still thick. He lowered the net, hands trembling. The fight had only just begun. Behind him, the old outpost's chain swung gently in the breeze, a reminder that some battles leave scars that linger long after the conflict ends. With a shaky breath, he fixed his gaze on the water, knowing he'd face this creature again. The sun beat down, casting stark shadows over the battered dock. Caius's heart raced, the silence heavy around him as he prepared for what lay ahead. Each breath echoed in his ears, a reminder of the battle yet to come. The lake, once a mere backdrop, now loomed larger than life, a testament to the conflict brewing beneath its surface. He tightened his grip on the net, eyes scanning the water for any sign of the predator. The air crackled with tension, charged with the promise of a confrontation that would test his limits. This was no ordinary fight. It was a reckoning, and he was ready.
The dying light of dusk cast long shadows across the crumbling stones of the silent verge. Caius Lorne crouched low, his muscles taut, eyes scanning the labyrinth of jagged ruins. A gust of wind carried the scent of damp earth and moss, sharp and cold. He brushed his fingertips over the rough surface of a moss-covered wall, feeling the grooves worn by time. Each breath pulled in the chill, igniting his senses. Shadows flickered at the edge of his vision, and the distant sound of water lapping against a mossy dock echoed in the silence. Caius's eyes darted through the gloom, alert for any sign of movement. This place encased him, alive with unspoken threats, demanding quick reflexes and unwavering focus. A flicker of motion caught Caius's eye, something shifting behind a collapsed arch. He froze, muscles coiled, every nerve alert. His hand moved instinctively to the leather strap of his satchel, fingers tightening around the handle. "You're close," he muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. A faint rustle of leaves sounded nearby, and he crouched lower, blending into the shadows. His heart raced in his chest, each thud echoing in his ears. The predator loomed closer, a sense of danger prickling at his skin. He took a deep breath, grounding himself, ready for whatever came next. The ruins held their breath, waiting alongside him, each second stretching taut as he waited for the inevitable moment. Caius edged toward the dock, feet crunching over loose gravel. The wind tugged at his hair and coat, carrying a metallic smell, blood. Rusted iron, old stories of sacrifices whispered in his mind. "Sometimes the ghosts we chase drag us under," he said softly, casting his gaze over the water's surface, which rippled with fractured reflections of fading stars. A shiver coursed down his spine, not from the cold but from the certainty that tonight's challenge would demand everything. He exhaled slowly, bracing for what was to come. Suddenly a low growl pierced the silence. Caius's body tensed, his eyes narrowing as a shadow emerged, muscles rippling beneath fur, eyes gleaming with primal hunger. Time fractured, breath caught as he gripped the net tightly, knuckles white, his voice silent but fierce. "Not today," he whispered, almost a prayer. The predator lunged, but Caius was faster, springing into action. The ruins echoed with a clash of flesh and fur. As the creature lunged again, Caius tightened his grip. Every sacrifice, every loss surged through him, fueling his determination. He would stand his ground, no matter the cost. With a final desperate lunge, Caius dodged the creature's snapping jaws, his heart pounding in sync with the chaos around him. The predator thrashed, and he felt the net slip from his fingers, but instinct kicked in. He pivoted, using the weight of his body to drive the creature back. "Get off me," he shouted, his voice rising above the fray. The moment hung, a fragile balance of life and death. Finally, with a swift motion, he caught the beast by the scruff, pulling it close. "This ends now." His breath came in ragged gasps, but determination burned in his chest, igniting the fight within him. The night was far from over, but he was ready to face whatever darkness lay ahead. The night air at Aaron's Rest is thick with salt and decay, wrapping Caius in a cold embrace. Moonlight slips through tangled branches, casting jagged shadows across the crumbling stones and shimmering lake. The ruins breathe a silent history, weathered carvings blurred by centuries, moss-clad rubble crunching softly underfoot. The scent of damp earth mingles with faint smoke from a distant fire, a trace of life flickering in this graveyard of stone. Caius pauses, his heart heavy with the sacrifices etched into these relics, their ghosts lingering in every crack. A distant cry pierces the night, sharp and urgent, a warning carried on the wind. He tightens his grip on his cloak, senses sharpening as the quiet transforms into a battleground of serenity and lurking danger. A splash shattered the water's steady rhythm. Caius's gaze snapped toward the lake, where ripples distorted the moon's reflection. Something large lurked beneath the surface, unseen but felt. Veins tightened, muscles coiled, nerves sharp with alertness. Every fiber of his body screamed with the certainty of being watched from the shadows. The lapping water echoed his racing heartbeat, each sound amplified in the stillness. Shadows flickered at the edge of his vision, and he instinctively crouched, senses stretched taut. A low rustling among the leaves drew his attention. The sound was subtle, just the scrape of stone against stone, the shift of dried foliage. Caius's eyes darted, scanning for movement. His hand brushed the hilt of his dagger, silent as the night. The distant cry from the water's edge grew closer, a warning that time was running out. He weighed his options, stay hidden or rush forward before the threat revealed itself. The moonlight pooled in a shallow basin where rainwater collected, reflecting fractured shards of silver. Caius dipped a finger into the cold, gritty water, tasting the mineral sharpness. His breath fogged briefly in the cool air, then dispersed into the darkness. Layered scents of moss, smoke, and salt anchored him in this suspended moment. The distant rustling returned, louder, now closer. Shadows danced as branches twisted in the breeze. The urgency intensified, knowing the hunt was closing in, and every second counted to escape or confront what lurked beneath the surface. Caius rose slowly, every step deliberate, muscles coiled for action. The ruins around him held stories of devotion and loss, whispering in the wind. He watched the water's surface, where moonlight fractured into shards, each reflecting unvoiced fears. The distant cry echoed again, sharper this time, a stark reminder that the shadows beneath the lake were not yet sated. With a final glance at the dark waters, Caius tightened his grip on his cloak. The night's cold promise clung to him. Danger lurked just beyond sight, and Aaron's rest held its breath, waiting, as he prepared to make his choice. Every sound, every shadow felt charged with potential. The ruins, steeped in history, watched silently as Caius faced the unknown. He took a deep breath, letting the cool air fill his lungs, a fleeting moment of clarity before the storm. The lake shimmered under the moonlight, its depths concealing secrets that begged to be uncovered. With resolve, Caius stepped forward, ready to confront whatever emerged from the shadows. Dorian stepped over the cracked stones of the corrupted citadel's threshold, the scent of damp earth and burnt wood curling into his nostrils. Dusk draped the ruins in bruised purple and smoky grey, shadows creeping along the walls like unseen spectres. A cold wind whispered through broken battlements, carrying a faint metallic tang that tightened his throat. Every footfall echoed hollowly, a drumbeat against the silence. Solitude bore down on him, pressing like a weight, as if the stones themselves lamented the sacrifices made. This place, caught between serenity and sorrow, urged him to keep moving. He felt the predator's shifting range like a ticking clock, pressing him forward. A shattered walkway blocked his path, its timbers splintered like ribs reaching into the void. Dorian knelt, tracing jagged edges with his fingers, then tested a loose plank. "This won't hold us," he grumbled, his voice low from years of teaching greenhorns how to scale cliffs without falling. He quickly fashioned a brace with a bent iron rod from his pack, precision honed by years at the forge. A distant howl sliced through the quiet, sharp and relentless. The scent of blood and wet fur thickened the air. His fists clenched, muscles tightening with cold fury as the howl echoed around him. "You better remember this," he growled, his voice steady even amid the chaos. "This is just the start of the fight." He tightened his grip on his blade, the corrosion mirroring the decay around him, yet the edge remained keen like him, forged through hardship. A faint glimmer beneath rubble caught his eye, a carved bone totem.
He crouched, fingers brushing its rough surface, cedar wafting faintly. A memory flickered a moment with his sister before everything darkened. He pocketed the totem, a silent vow clenching in his gut. The wind turned cold again, raising goosebumps. "Hear me out, there's nothing holy left here," he sneered, bitterness dripping from his words like venom. Ahead a low rumble vibrated through the stones. Dorian froze, muscles coiled, eyes scanning for cover. The predator's approach was no longer subtle. He grunted an acknowledgement of the danger, knowing hesitation would be death. The faint scent of smoke drifted on the wind. Someone had been here, destruction left in their wake. Cold fury rose anew, memories flooding him, long nights scavenging ruins, the bitter taste of loss. Shadows became allies in the twisting corridors. "We move now," he whispered, urgency sharpening his tone. Every second stretched thin, life hanging by a thread. The predator's scent grew stronger, hunger raw and close. The citadel offered no refuge, neither did he. A narrow peninsula loomed ahead, the dock swaying over a dark lake. Dorian paused, nostrils flaring. The scent of lakeweed and cold water mixed with the predator's musk. Close now. He tested his weight on the dock, its creaking protesting beneath him. Silence pressed heavily, thick with sacrifice and solitude. He swallowed hard, his voice rough. The longer we linger, the worse it gets. The dock creaked underfoot, warning him of its fragility. The predator prowled nearby. Time slipped like water through his fingers. He stepped onto the dock, the water lapping softly, shadows clinging to him like a second skin. The howl erupted again, shattering the quiet. He gripped the railing, knuckles white, breath ragged, a familiar ache stirred. Loss, relentless drive shaping him. The hunger in the wind echoed the predator's proximity, but he stood resolute, hardened by the trials of solitude. No easy answers, only the relentless push forward. "This fight's just beginning," he murmured, voice steady despite the chaos. With a final glance at the dark water, he stepped into the shadows, the citadel's secrets pressing against him. He moved into the shadows, every step a silent defiance. The predator's presence lingered, but so did his resolve. The darkness enveloped him, distant fires flickering faintly like a fading pulse. Dorian tightened his grip on his weapon, eyes scanning for the next threat, knowing this moment marked only the beginning. The silence ahead was thick with unspoken threats. The citadel loomed ominously, its secrets whispering in the wind. Dorian's heart raced. Survival depended on the choices he made now. He could feel the predator drawing closer, hunger palpable in the air. He breathed deeply, grounding himself in the moment. The fight ahead would demand everything he had, and he was ready to meet it head-on. With resolve hardening his gaze, he stepped forward, ready to challenge whatever lay in wait.
The gloaming reach at dusk felt alive, wrapping around Peregrine like a shroud. Mist curled over the water, obscuring the shoreline in a silvery haze, while the air hummed with an electric chill that danced across his skin. The scent of damp earth and crushed wildflowers tugged at buried memories, sweet yet unsettling. A distant cry sliced through the quiet, mingling with the gentle whisper of willow branches dipping into the lake's glassy surface. Beneath his fingertips, smooth stones slick with moss and dew offered a grounding sensation amid the encroaching shadows. The boundary between city and wilderness blurred, leaving him acutely aware of the lurking danger that lay just beyond the mist. Every nerve in his body tingled, alert to unseen threats in the gathering twilight. Her body stiffened, and her chest tightened as a distant splash punctuated the ambient soundscape. Peregrine's eyes darted toward the dark water, hands clenched. "This silence is unsettling. It feels like something's lurking just beyond the shadows," he whispered, tension lacing his voice. Dorian's gaze flicked over him, a faint smirk curling his lips. Probably just a fish, or something more interesting. His tone was unbothered, but the glint in his eyes betrayed a simmering amusement, a secret lurking beneath his calm demeanor. Peregrine stepped closer to the water's edge, his eyes scanning the ripples. "We don't have much time. The city's counting on us to stop him before dawn," urgency twisted in his chest, the ticking clock pressing him to act. The weight of their mission loomed, every second counted now. Dorian shrugged, his tone smooth and unbothered. "Calm yourself. Anxiety does little but cloud your judgment. You've always been easily startled, haven't you?" He stepped closer, voice lowering, an edge creeping into his words. "But I get it. We're running out of daylight and every second counts."
His smile was thin, a veneer over something more sinister, a deliberate manipulation that sent a chill up Peregrine's spine. A sudden snap echoed behind them, sharp and unnatural, shattering the fragile quiet. Peregrine spun around, hands instinctively reaching for his weapon, adrenaline surging through him. Shadows danced in the dim light, alive with an unseen presence, as the predator's threat transformed from distant worry to immediate reality. Every breath felt heavier, each scent sharper, salt, iron, the scent of disturbed earth. Survival demanded constant vigilance. He tightened his grip around the cool stone in his palm. The night had become a trap, and the lurking menace pressed closer. The tension hung thick in the air, a taut string ready to snap. Peregrine's pulse raced as he faced the darkness, heart pounding with the weight of their choices. Dorian's calculating gaze pierced through the shadows, a reminder that every alliance bore risks. The quiet had turned hostile, and the fight was far from over. He steeled himself, knowing that the edge of danger was a mere breath away, and every second brought them closer to the precipice.
Caius stepped onto the weathered planks of Echowatch Pinnacle, feeling the damp earth beneath him, a reminder of the life that thrived here, and the fading echoes of shared meals still lingering in the air. Dusk wrapped the fortress in a cloak of deepening shadows, the air buzzing with unspoken excitement. Figures bowed deeply, hands pressed together in reverence, their murmurs weaving a tapestry of connection with the city's heartbeat. Nearby, hunters passed around a bowl of millet porridge, fingers brushing against its coarse texture, while elders sipped herbal infusions, the steam curling like whispers of ancient stories. The distant sound of hammering artisans mingled with the murmurs from the lake, where the last glimmers of sunlight dipped below the horizon. Yet, amid this communion, a merchant's gaze darted among the crowd, a challenge lurking in the depths of his ambition. As the aroma of smoked meat and wild tubers vanished into the air, Caius moved through the crowd, noting the careful balance of portions. No one dared to take more than their share, a sacred rule upheld by tradition. Nearby, a healer dressed in a rough-spun tunic peeled dark, leafy greens, her fingers brushing against a knot tied tightly around her wrist, a precaution against chaos. The low chatter around him pulsed with respect, yet the merchant's gaze kept returning to Caius, a challenge simmering beneath the surface. Just then, a child stumbled nearby, and the keeper of the law nearest to Caius pressed a hand to his chest, bowing deeply as he murmured a prayer to Solara for guidance. Caius observed a cluster of farmers stacking smoked meats in woven baskets, their hands rough yet steady. A pair of poet guardians approached, their layered robes embroidered with twisting patterns, signifying their status without boast. One guardian dipped his head toward Caius in greeting, hands pressed together, a gesture returned with measured humility. Laughter erupted from a hunter too loud and too disruptive, drawing sharp glances from the others. Tension crackled in the air, fraying with each small offense. The crowd felt like a coiled spring, ready to snap at any moment. Caius scooped a bowl of warm porridge thick with barley, savoring its comforting warmth as it reminded him of home. He ate silently, eyes focused on the ritual unfolding around him. Neighbors shared small bites of baked bread and sips of bitter herbal tea, while a woman across the table tied a new knot in her shawl, careful and deliberate. The shadows lengthened, and the keepers of the law began a low chant, their voices weaving reverence to Terrace and Lunara, invoking balance and sacrifice. The ritual pulsed beneath the gathering, binding them to a shared destiny, yet the unity felt fragile on the brink of disruption. Movement near the water's edge drew his attention. Hunters cleaned their catch, scales glistening under the pale moonlight. A laborer adjusted his leather sandals, worn thin from the day's toil, then exchanged a whispered oath, "May the flame protect us," before returning to his task. The communal silence was punctuated by the clatter of tools and soft murmurs of prayer. Nearby, a teacher busily rearranged scrolls, their frayed edges marked by ink stains. Caius noted the contrast, modest commoners against the layered robes of aristocrats patrolling the perimeter, a living reminder of the unyielding social order. Suddenly, a figure from the lower ranks hesitated before stepping forward, eyes darting nervously to the poet guardians. His fingers twitched, a brief, pointed gesture toward his own chest, a challenge to the norms. The crowd stilled, whispers rising and falling like waves as the keepers of the law closed ranks, their gazes sharp and unyielding. Caius' shoulders tensed. He could feel the delicate balance between sacrifice and dissent on the verge of breaking. The aroma of smoked meat and wild tubers vanished into the air, replaced by a metallic bite of tension that hung thick.
Somewhere in the distance, the shadow of an unseen predator crept nearer, a reminder that survival demanded unity, and fractures in their social fabric could be as deadly as any beast. Caius stepped back toward the hearth, where the embers glowed faintly, casting flickering light on faces drawn tight with concern. A child clutched a small bowl of herbal tea, eyes wide as an elder whispered a prayer to Lunara, invoking introspection. The community gathered tighter, hands brushing as bowls passed silently, the ritual of shared sustenance a fragile thread holding them together. Caius's cloak slipped slightly, revealing the worn leather of his boots, common yet cared for, a testament to his place in this ordered world. Beneath the surface, fears simmered, the unspoken knowledge that the predator's hunt would soon force them to choose between sacrifice and survival. As night deepened, the lake's surface turned to ink. Caius watched lanterns flickering toward the horizon. A white feather, caught in the breeze, fluttered past his shoulder, an unseen sign, or perhaps a warning. He bowed deeply to an approaching keeper, hands pressed firmly together, eyes steady with resolve. Around him, the city pulsed with a tense rhythm. The sacred meal concluded, but its echoes lingering in silence. Prayers to Solara and Teros whispered through the cool air, yet the ripple of dissent and fear pulsed beneath their feet. Caius's gaze hardened. The path ahead demanded sacrifice, but the city's unity hung by a thread. The delicate balance of Poet City, its rituals, its rules, was poised on the edge of an uncertain dawn.
Peregrine stood at the edge of the dock, the wood creaking beneath her boots. The lake stretched out before her, its surface rippling gently in the dusk light. Shadows flickered at the tree line, and a faint smell of moss and damp earth drifted on the breeze. The cabin behind her loomed like a dark silhouette, its windows unlit, holding its breath. The fading sun painted the sky in shades of purple and gray. Beneath that beauty, unease stirred. Each breath drew in more of the cool, damp air, and her fingers clenched the rough wood of the dock. Every nerve tensed, poised for the inevitable moment when danger would reveal itself beyond the calm surface. She fidgeted, biting her lip as she scanned the horizon. The distant splash echoed unnervingly, too deliberate, too close. She hugged her arms to her chest, shivering as the dampness seeped through her clothes. Her stomach twisted with worry, the silence pressing harder with each passing second. "What do you mean it's not safe? Are you saying we're in danger here?" she pressed, her voice breaking with panic. The other person hesitated, then replied, "We don't have much time. We need to decide now." The lake's surface shimmered under the fading light, ripples spreading outward from the direction of the splash. She squinted, trying to see beyond the glassy sheen, but only darkness met her gaze. The stillness felt deceptive. Her grip tightened on the dock, knuckles white. "You think that thing's just gonna ignore us?" she pressed, voice tense. The wind picked up, carrying a faint rustle of grass and a sharp bird call that startled her. Shadows flickered at the tree line, the trees swaying ominously. "When was the last time you saw it?" she asked, voice low, eyes fixed on the dark water. The response was silent, heavy with unspoken fears. She slumped slightly, shoulders sagging under an invisible burden. The dampness in the air made her shiver, and she wrapped her arms tighter around herself. The night's darkness deepened, stars beginning to pierce the sky, but the weight in her chest remained heavy and unyielding. "We can't stay here. If it's not safe, we have to move now," she insisted, her tone sharp with fear and determination. The dock creaked again, echoing her urgency. Shadows danced at the edge of her vision, and the wind carried a whisper of impending danger. She turned sharply, on high alert for whatever might lurk in the gloom. The other person's voice broke through, panic lacing their words. "You don't get it," they yelled, stepping forward. The ground squished beneath their feet as they moved closer, desperation evident in their stance. The lake seemed to pulse, darker now, as if alive with unseen menace. A bird shrieked from the trees, startling her, her breath caught, lungs tightening. The horizon blurred in the growing dark, and the line between safety and threat faded. She instinctively gripped the dock's edge, fingers digging into the wood, her knuckles aching. The distant stars flickered, cold and distant like her own sense of isolation. Every gust of wind sounded like a warning, every shadow a threat she couldn't ignore. She stared into the black water, the ripples flickering like shards of broken glass. The night pressed in on her, the silence thick and unyielding. Her shoulders sagged as exhaustion seeped into her bones. Without warning, a sudden splash broke the surface, sending a wave of dread through her. She froze, eyes fixed on the water, waiting. This was the moment, the choice. She took a step back from the edge, heart racing, as shadows at the tree line swayed gently in the breeze.
The lake's quiet menace lingered, waiting for her decision, the darkness swallowing the last glimmers of fading light. The ripples faded, and the moment stretched. Peregrine clenched her jaw, the gravity of her choice weighing heavily in the air. She could feel the darkness closing in, yet a flicker of resolve ignited within her. The decision loomed stark and unavoidable. Stepping back from the brink, a new determination surged through her. With a final glance at the ominous water, she turned away from the dock, ready to confront whatever awaited her on the shore. Shadows shifted, but she wouldn't allow fear to paralyze her any longer.
The throne room loomed like a great beast, its high ceilings and stone walls echoing with the memories of power and betrayal. Flickering torchlight danced along the cold surfaces, casting long shadows that writhed and stretched like dark tendrils reaching toward Peregrine Ashford. The air was thick with the scent of damp stone, and something sharper, perhaps the bitterness of loss. Dorian Olivier stood at the center, a figure of arrogance and quiet menace, his eyes glinting like polished steel. The chill of the room seeped into Peregrine's bones as she stepped forward. The ticking of a clock counted down the moments until everything would change. This was not just a confrontation, it was the culmination of despair, and she had to steel herself for what lay ahead. Dorian's presence was suffocating, a weight pressing down on Peregrine as she crossed the threshold. "You shouldn't have come here, Peregrine," he said, his voice smooth and taunting like honey laced with poison. She clenched her fists, nails digging into her palms. Her chest tightened as her pulse hammered in her ears, each beat loud against the stillness. "I had to confront you. You've stripped away everything we cherished." She shot back, anger igniting within her, a small flame against the chill of his dominance. Dorian shrugged, a nonchalant smile playing on his lips. "And here we are, my dear, still playing our roles. This is just another act in a long, twisted play." Peregrine's eyes narrowed, muscles tensing as she stared over the sprawling expanse of the room. The throne sat empty, a stark reminder of the power Dorian wielded, and of the emptiness it left behind. She took a step closer, the cold stone beneath her feet grounding her. "This isn't a game. This is about lives, choices. You can't just—" Her voice faltered. The reality of her situation crashed down around her. Dorian took a step forward, closing the distance. "Every choice has a cost, my dear. You know that better than anyone. You've played your part well, but it's time to face the truth." The tension in the air was palpable, thick like the storm clouds gathering outside the castle. "What truth? That you're a monster," she spat, but the words felt hollow, the truth more complex than she cared to admit. Dorian chuckled softly, a sound devoid of warmth, and her anger flared. "You think you're the only one who's sacrificed. You have no idea what I've lost to get here." His gaze locked onto hers, and for a moment she saw something deeper, not just malevolence, but a flicker of something almost human. Unspoken truths flitted between them, but the moment shattered, as Dorian smirked, stepping back into the shadows. Peregrine's breath came in short gasps, the solitude creeping in, squeezing the breath from her lungs. She could almost taste the bitterness of defeat on her tongue, but she wouldn't give in. "You think you've won? You're wrong. There's still a chance for us to turn this around." Her voice rang out, fueled by desperation, but Dorian's laugh cut through her like a knife. "Oh, sweet Peregrine, it's too late for that. My victory is already sealed." With a final surge of courage, she drew herself up, determination hardening her resolve. "You may think this is over, but you're wrong. I'll fight for what's right, for everyone you've hurt." The words felt like a lifeline thrown into the abyss, but she had to believe in them. Dorian's expression flickered, just for an instant, and she seized the moment. The tension in the room shifted, a palpable crackle of uncertainty as she moved closer, eyes locked on his. The clock ticked on, each second a reminder that this battle was far from finished. As she turned to leave, the echo of her footsteps reverberated, in the vast emptiness, a declaration of her defiance. The throne room faded behind her, but the memory of Dorian's gaze lingered, a dark promise that she would soon return to confront the shadows once more. The throne room fell silent, the shadows stretching longer as Peregrine's footsteps faded away. In that stillness, Dorian's smirk vanished, replaced by a moment of uncertainty. He stared at the empty throne, the weight of his victory feeling lighter than he had anticipated. This was no ordinary game, and the final act had yet to unfold. The night bore down on Caius, heavy and oppressive. Shadows from the silent verge stretched long and dark, reaching out like fingers eager to ensnare him. The moon cast a pale silver glow over the uneven terrain. Distant trees loomed like sentinels. A crooked cabin stood forlorn, and the narrow dirt path snaked toward the water. A breeze stirred the grasses, carrying a hushed lament of sacrifice and loss. Caius crouched behind a fallen log, muscles rigid and eyes scanning the darkness. Every rustle of leaves made his skin prickle. Sweat pooled in his palms as he fought to steady his breath, each inhalation a reminder of the danger lurking just beyond his sight. Caius edged forward, dread knotting in his stomach as he moved past the log. A shadow darted between the trees, and he froze, listening intently. The crack of twigs echoed in the quiet night, each sound magnified, sending shivers down his spine. He had to decide, press on or retreat. The forest around him felt alive, each tree a silent observer of his turmoil. Heart racing, he turned, gasping for air, eyes flickering between the darkness and the faint glint of moonlight. A growl reverberated through the trees, a low, menacing sound that made his pulse quicken. He was not the hunter but the hunted, and the realization struck him with icy clarity. Without thinking, Caius moved toward a cluster of boulders, hoping their shadows would conceal him. He stumbled, catching his foot on a hidden root, and fell hard, dirt and leaves scattering around him. A sharp gasp escaped his lips as the growl grew louder, echoing in the stillness. Every instinct screamed at him to run, but he remained motionless, muscles taut, waiting for the inevitable. The sound of paws crunching leaves drew closer, vibrating through the ground beneath him. He pressed himself flat against the earth, heart pounding, straining to hear over the roar of his own blood in his ears. Caius crawled slowly to his knees, brushing dirt from his clothes, sweat chilling him against the night air. The boulders offered a narrow refuge, but only for a moment. Outside, the predator prowled, its growls vibrating through the ground. Time stretched, each second an eternity. Should he wait, or make a break for it? The growls intensified, thick muscles shifting just outside his view, circling him. His fingers trembled, he clenched his jaw, forcing the fear down. When the beast finally pounded past, he seized his chance. He sprinted toward the trees, lungs burning, heart racing. A flash of fur and teeth nearly caught him, but he dove just in time, scrambling into the darkness with a fierce resolve to survive. The gloaming reach draped itself in thick shadows, mist curling over damp stones and tangled underbrush. Peregrine crouched behind a fallen log, lungs heaving in the oppressive silence. The scent of wet earth and decaying leaves filled her nostrils, sharp and grounding. Every breath felt like inhaling darkness itself. The distant cry of an unseen predator echoed softly, blending with the whisper of wind through the trees. Her eyes darted over the faint outlines of the terrain, muscles tense and ready. The night felt alive, thick with hidden threats, as if the forest was waiting. Time stretched, each second dragging her deeper into uncertainty. A snapped branch shattered the quiet. Peregrine's stomach dropped. She pressed her body flat against the ground, ears straining. The predator's scent grew stronger, something primal and feral. Her chest tightened as the howl echoed again, louder. This time was the beast closing in. With trembling hands she dug her fingers into the dirt, feeling the cool earth beneath her. The pounding in her ears drowned out all else. She risked a glance at the footprints, fresh, deeper than before. The trail veered into a thicket, a dark tunnel promising safety or a trap. Her instincts screamed for her to move, yet hesitation rooted her in place. The shadows pulsed, alive with hidden eyes. Every moment teetered on the edge of decision. Her breath quickened, cold dread settling in her gut. She shoved herself to her knees, peering into the blackness ahead. The predator's growl vibrated through the air, a low, guttural threat. She clenched her fists, fighting the urge to flee. Her gaze flicked to the faint glow of the campsite ruins, embers still smoldering, remnants of someone else's failed attempt at survival. Hope flickered, only to twist into dread. The beast's territory was expanding, and the forest whispered of dangers lurking in every direction. Heart racing, she took a shaky step forward, the silence broken by the crack of breaking twigs behind her, her muscles tensed for flight. The howl echoed, the larger beast close behind, drawn by the chaos. She had to find a safer path before the predator's territory swallowed her whole. Her eyes darted to the trail of fresh footprints, leading into a thick, shadowed thicket. Every instinct screamed to move, yet fear kept her rooted.
The darkness pressed in, thick and suffocating. Her foot caught on a hidden root, sending her tumbling into a shallow ditch. Pain shot through her ankle. She bit back a cry, feeling time slipping away. The predator's pursuit was relentless. Forcing herself upright, she limped forward, each step agony. The thicket loomed, her last barrier to safety. Ragged sweat soaked her brow. The smaller predator's snarls echoed closer, the forest tightening around her. She pushed on, battling exhaustion and fear, knowing one mistake could be her end. A sharp howl shattered the night, freezing the smaller predator in its tracks. It bolted into the shadows, the larger beast's growl lingered, heavy and menacing. Peregrine's pulse raced. She had to move before it turned its focus back on her. Limping, she forced her way through the final thicket, branches tearing at her face and clothes. The forest's whispers grew louder, the predator's presence undeniable. Each second felt like a drumbeat of impending disaster. She scrambled toward open ground, the moonlight illuminating a scorched campsite, scattered belongings, smoldering embers. Someone had been here recently, but dread coiled in her stomach. Movement stirred beyond the clearing, and the predator was no longer just a distant sound, but a shadow stalking her, its presence heavy in the air. Her battered ankle throbbed, the trail leading into unknown peril. The forest felt alive with unseen eyes and quiet threats. Sweat dripped down her face as she weighed her options. The distant growl made her freeze. The relentless ticking of the clock hammered in her ears. She had to decide, now. Every moment was a gamble, every step a risk. Shadows pressed closer, and the nightmare refused to end. The night silence hung heavy, broken only by the faint rustling beyond the clearing. A low growl vibrated through the darkness, a promise that the hunt was far from over. Peregrine's breath came in ragged gasps, her body battered and trembling. She stared into the shadows, knowing the forest would not reveal its secrets easily. Instinct urged her to run, to hide, but the predator's presence loomed. Moonlight revealed torn clothing and blood-streaked leaves, evidence of her narrow escape. With her heart racing, she scanned the underbrush, each rustle a reminder of her perilous situation. The night whispered warnings as she prepared to face whatever threat lay ahead.
The mirror's edge felt foreign under the pale moonlight, the cobblestones once warmed by the sun, now cold and unwelcoming. Shadows stretched and twisted, dancing erratically with each gust of wind that whistled through the square. Dorian stepped cautiously, the familiar scrape of his boots on the uneven stones almost drowned out by the sharp scent of damp earth mixed with the delicate fragrance of nearby jasmine. The night air felt heavy, and the banners that usually fluttered proudly hung limply, their colors dull against the darkness. A distant cry pierced the stillness from the forest's edge, making the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. Every sound seemed amplified, the soft lap of the lake, the rustle of leaves, each one a reminder of the lurking danger that thrummed around him like an unseen predator. He paused, eyes narrowing toward the darkened trees, muscles coiling as he scanned for any sign of movement. A flicker in the shadows caught his attention, but it vanished almost instantly, leaving only the haunting echo of a predator's call now closer and more urgent. Dorian tightened his grip on his cloak, his fingers digging into the fabric as he moved forward, each step deliberate and silent. The jasmine clung to him like a taunt, a reminder that beauty often masked peril. He strained his ears, listening for anything that might betray an attacker lurking in the dark, tension crackling in the air. A ripple across the lake's surface drew his gaze, the water shimmering unnaturally in the stillness. A sudden ripple jolted him, sending adrenaline coursing through his veins. Shadows flitted near the planters, and the crack of a branch echoed from behind, sending him whirling around, hand instinctively reaching for his dagger. The square, once a place of openness, felt constricting, every breath heavier as the tension mounted. He clenched his jaw, shoulders squared, prepared for whatever lurked just beyond the veil of night. The predator's cry resounded again, urgent and insistent. Dorian remained still, the moonlight fractured over the stone fountain at the center of the square, casting fleeting reflections that danced with the shadows. The square transformed into a stage for unseen threats, shadows and muted scents weaving a tapestry of danger. In that moment, he had to decide, stand and fight or retreat into the darkness. The predator's call faded into a haunting silence, a vacuum that seemed to swallow the night. Dorian remained rooted, breath shallow, senses razor-sharp. The soft lap of water against the shore no longer felt soothing but foreboding, as if it held secrets yet to be revealed.
He scanned the shadows, knowing that whatever awaited him was still out there, lurking in the depths of the darkness, waiting for the right moment to strike. The air vibrated with anticipation, and Dorian felt the weight of the night pressing in around him. He exhaled slowly, steeling himself for the encounter ahead, the jasmine scent lingering as a reminder that beauty could easily be accompanied by danger.
Caius Lorne crouched at the edge of the silent verge, where the lake mirrored the dusky sky. The evening breeze rippled through the water, carrying the rich scent of damp earth and fading sunlight. He nibbled at a piece of dark, crusty bread, its earthy aroma mingling with the chill in the air. Around him, the gathering settled onto worn wooden benches, their murmurs rising and falling like waves. Herbal infusions from shared vessels wafted around, a warm promise against the encroaching cold. A woman near the fire bowed deeply to an elder keeper of the law, her hands pressed together in reverence, steady and purposeful. Caius's eyes were drawn to the braided cord at her cloak, one knot loose, ready to unravel. An unsettling thought crept in. An untied knot was known to invite chaos, a taboo no one dared breach under Solara's vigilant gaze. Shadows stretched as twilight deepened, tension curling beneath the calm of ritual. The firelight flickered across the faces around him, weathered and weary. A group of hunters emerged from the lake, their muddy boots leaving tracks in the damp earth. One held a bundle wrapped in dried leaves, smoked fish, a hard-won prize. Caius noted the careful distribution. Hands remained steady as they took only their share, despite hunger gnawing at their insides. Nearby, a teacher adjusted a rough spun shawl around a child, murmuring a quiet blessing to Teros, the god of sacrifice, before offering a bowl of porridge thick with millet and barley. The child hesitated before dipping in, fingers curling around the wooden spoon, soft slurps breaking the silence. The rasping sound of a craftsman sharpening a tool punctuated the quiet, his tunic stained with earth. Caius's gaze shifted to a young man standing too close to the fire's edge, his eyes darting around as he pointed at the elder keeper. Defiance flickering like a flame. Silence settled again. The elder's lips pressed into a tight line, a reprimand that resonated through the gathering. As the aroma of smoked meats mingled with the bitter tang of dark leafy greens harvested from the lake shore, Caius reached for a shared wooden spoon, scooping up a modest portion of root vegetables. Their warmth seeped into his chilled fingers. Nearby, two artisans exchanged nods, their garments marked with faint embroidery denoting their station. The younger lowered his gaze as the elder spoke of the looming predator shifting closer to their borders, a threat that gnawed at their peace. Caius swallowed hard, the herbal tea beside him bitter, grounding him amidst the tension. A soft chant drifted from the far side of the gathering, a prayer to Lunara, goddess of moon and introspection, seeking guidance through the encroaching night. The quiet was punctuated only by the rustle of cloth and a child's faint cough. He scanned the crowd, faces etched with expectation, silently demanding the collective be prioritized over personal fears. A figure moved through the shadows, a healer tending to a child with a bruise darkening beneath thin skin. Her hands glided with practiced care, brushing away loose hair, the faint scent of wild herbs clinging to her sleeves. Caius caught a glimpse of her simple white feather necklace, an emblem of divine guidance. The child's mother watched, eyes lowered in gratitude, fingers weaving a subtle bow, hands pressed together in silent thanks to Solara. Across the clearing, a group of laborers prepared for the evening's final task, securing offerings for the upcoming ritual. Caius's gaze fixed on a man tying a cord, fingers tightening into a firm knot. He paused, breath hitching, eyes narrowing at the imperfect knot. A passing keeper shot him a sharp look, causing the man's shoulders to straighten. He retied the knot, fingers trembling slightly, as order was restored. In Poet's City, even small acts bore the weight of the god's watchful eyes. Caius's cloak shifted as he rose, the fabric rough against his skin, dyed a muted brown that marked him among the middle classes. His boots scuffed against the damp earth as he joined the edge of the circle. A poet guardian approached, robes layered and embroidered in deep blue, a symbol of her elevated status. She inclined her head in greeting, hands pressed together before bowing deeply. Caius returned the gesture, careful to meet her steady gaze, though his fingers itched with the urge to break from protocol. The night air thickened, a low growl echoing from beyond the tree line. The apex predator moving closer, its presence, an unspoken threat tightening the communal bonds.
The time for silent reverence was fading, urgency bleeding into ritual. The communal meal ended with a slow, deliberate silence. The bowls passed back empty, save for crumbs and a few wilted leaves. The fire's glow softened, casting flickering shadows over faces marked by resolve and quiet fear. A child's laughter broke through the gloom, a sound that felt out of place against the darkening sky. A keeper stepped forward, voice low but firm, reciting lines that wove a prayer to Teros, invoking strength through sacrifice and unity. Hands rose in unison, clasped together, then bowed deep, a gesture binding the community beyond words. Caius's hands trembled slightly as he joined in, the words settling over him. Yet beneath the surface, the predator's threat pulsed, a reminder that their peace teetered on chaos. As the gathering dispersed, Caius lingered by the lake, the water's surface capturing Lunara's pale light. A fisherman hauled a net heavy with silver fish, their scales glinting wet and cold. The man nodded to Caius, then carefully untied a knot securing the net's edge. Caius's breath caught a taboo breached. The fisherman's hands paused, eyes flicking nervously toward the elders gathered. The knot was retied with deliberate care, fingers swift, the order restored. Caius shivered as the night's chill seeped through his cloak. The predator's growl echoed again, closer now, a warning that the coming days would demand harsher sacrifices. The last embers of the fire smoldered as Caius moved toward the shared hall, the wooden floor creaking beneath his boots inside. The aroma of barley porridge still lingered, mingling with the musk of damp wool and smoke. A young teacher closed a ledger, eyes lifting to meet his with a steady gaze. "May the flame guide our hands and hearts tonight," the teacher murmured, urgency palpable in his voice. Caius's lips curled into a brief smile, quickly replaced by a grimace at the taste of ash and hope. Around them, figures settled into the night's vigil, their faces etched with resolve. Outside, the first stars emerged, silent witnesses to the fragile order clinging to the silent verge. The hall's door swung closed behind Caius, muffling the distant calls of hunters and the restless stir of the lake's creatures. He took a seat among the gathered hands, wrapped around a cup of warm herbal tea, the bitterness grounding him in the moment. The community's murmured prayers rose and fell like the tide, a rhythm of unity against the encroaching darkness. Caius traced the woven symbols of sacrifice stitched into his cloak, the predator's shadow looming beyond the walls. Within, the bonds of Poet's City held fast, for now, as the last notes of the communal chant faded. Caius rose, the evening's weight settling into his bones. Outside, the lake's surface mirrored the cold gleam of stars, and a lone white feather drifted silently across the path, an unspoken message from Solara. He paused, gaze fixed on the feather's slow descent, heart tightening at the rare promise of divine guidance. The knot of tension in his chest tightened anew, a silent vow forming beneath the whispering winds. Sacrifice was no longer an abstract virtue, but a necessity. The predator prowled closer, and the harmony of the silent verge trembled on the brink of collapse.
Caius inhales deeply, the brine of the sea mixing with the damp earth, a saltiness that clings to his tongue. Mist dances around his lips, while the bittersweet scent of wild flowers lingers in the air, evoking memories both painful and nostalgic. The shadows stretch across the gloaming reach as dusk settles, wrapping everything in a heavy cloak of twilight. The ground squelches beneath his boots, slick stones pressing cold against his soles. He stands at the edge of the city, where the primal hunger of the shoreline meets the approaching storm. The air buzzes with tension, and the taste of iron hangs faintly in the atmosphere, a reminder of the battles yet to come. Caius clenches his fists, his jaw set firm, as he feels the weight of the moment settle over him. Dew grit clings to his teeth, the crunch of moss echoing in his mouth. Every gust of wind carries a whisper of the unknown, a thrill of fear and anticipation. "Are you ready? We can still back out if you need to. Just say the word," Peregrine asks, his tone laced with urgency, his eyes searching Caius's face for any sign of hesitation. Caius meets Peregrine's gaze, the flicker of concern igniting his resolve. "We have to face this together. We can't go back now, not after all this." The words come out strong, punctuated by the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. Peregrine nods, a hint of a smile breaking through the tension. The distant cry of a predator echoes, reminding them of the stakes ahead. In the twilight, their resolve solidifies, forming an unspoken pact. The taste of salt and iron remains sharp on Caius's tongue as he takes a step into the deepening shadows, ready to embrace whatever the night holds. The air vibrates with potential, urging him onward, and he and Peregrine move forward, side by side, into the unknown, closing Praukarblev.
Caius steps into the cool embrace of the night, the shadows pulling them into their depths. The world around him fades, leaving only the thrum of their shared determination. Together, they venture into the dark, where the primal hunger of the night awaits, promising both danger and revelation. As they disappear into the mist, the first stars blink awake, witnesses to their decision, a choice that could alter the course of everything they know. Caius steps into the cool embrace of the night, the shadows pulling them into their depths. The world around him fades, leaving only the thrum of their shared determination. Together, they venture into the dark, where the primal hunger of the night awaits, promising both danger and revelation. As they disappear into the mist, the first stars blink awake, witnesses to their decision, a choice that could alter the course of everything they know.